He is God's minister to you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. This is Ministry of the Badge.
I believe these are going to be our most violent neighborhoods where we get a lot of our shootings, our robberies, and our fights.
Crimes they're working to reduce.
How rewarding has it been for you?
It's very rewarding. You can see a difference in the streets, and it makes other people happy. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to make people safe.
Whether it's chatting about school.
What grade are you in?
Seventh.
Or talking sports, people are grateful on how they're focusing their efforts.
How do you like it?
I appreciate it because to me it makes the neighborhood seem a lot more safer. This way the criminals know, hey, the cops are here on this block.
It's quite amazing what happens when police officers interact with the community. This is what we're going to talk about today on Ministry of the Badge. And I'm not talking about community policing where, embarrassing things happen with police officers and sometimes there's an overreach. But I think it's very important to understand in a context when you are someone who wears the badge, when you are a part of the community. A lot of times police officers are looked at as like robotic or as if though we have no feelings or, that we just enjoy doing all of these nasty, bad things. And what you see nowadays is you have that sense that police are just against you. It's been like this for quite some time. Here at Ministry of the Badge, we're going to change those perceptions. And I want you to understand as police officers that you have an ability that's been given to you because you are called to a job unlike anything else that's ever been done before by most men. I'm your host, Chaplain Gonzo. If you missed our first show, I hope you tune in to see what we were talking about in that program. We got right into, it was about crucifixion and the topic of where does our power come from? So I hope you tune into that show and take a look at it. If not, if this is your first time, welcome to Ministry of the Badge. Those two gentlemen that you saw there, I had the privilege of working with both those guys. I mean, they were young guys at the time when they came on, obviously, and they're still young there. That was a while back. But those two guys have now been on the department for quite some time, and they are now the veterans on that Kenosha Police Department, and I'm proud to say I did work with those guys. But again, when we go out into the community as those who wear the badge, and there are some of you that may not have that opportunity, there's some of you that will do a job unlike I had ever done. But nonetheless, where you serve, whether it's in your church, whether it's in your son's basketball team, baseball team, daughter's basketball team, baseball team, where you do your service other than your job, it's part of the community. We're going to talk about that today because I feel it's very important to understand what your role is. And I'm sure most of you know. And those of you who are tuning in, that again, you see all these things happening about police officers, but that you can tell to engage with the community, to sit out and talk with those people. I walked many of those walking patrols when we had them. And in fact, it was a time to be able to just sit and talk with people. I was the type of cop when I would go around, I worked third shift, probably 20 years, most of my career. And even on third shift, I would get to know the hotel guys and the gals who would work in the gas stations and all of those things. And I would establish my own sense of community with them, because when I had to go back and talk to them about crimes and things that were committed in the area, or, maybe it's the late night guy out walking his dog and I used to sit and talk with him, or the guy who used to come down and feed the foxes that were down by the lake, whatever the case may be, it was showing the community that, you really do care, that you're really watching out for them. And I know we as police officers don't always seem to have that aura about us because of the badge that we wear and the authority that we carry. But in fact, police officers are the community. I used to say all the time to people, I was running for sheriff for a while. I said, look, you don't understand. We are you. We come from you. We grew up in the places, most of us, that when we worked there. The one gentleman, he grew up here. I remember him when he was a kid. I worked with his dad way back when I was a kid at a gas station. So we grew up in these days, and a lot of cops nowadays, they do stay in their communities, but they just do a job unlike most people do. And it's even interesting how in the Bible it's talked about. And you say, well, how is it? Cops aren't talked about in the Bible. They absolutely are. They absolutely positively are. And I believe that's why Ministry of the Badge exists, is to show you exactly who you are according to the Bible. Community policing is not anything that was, unusual. When you look at the first community officers of the 1600s back in the original colonies, a lot of their duties were to just protect the environment that was around them, and not only to stop from the wildlife from coming in, but I'm sure they walked around and they got to know the people because they were the people. They were out, again, doing a job that most of the community didn't want to do. I mean, everybody was responsible for their own properties and, the care for, but when it came to certain aspects of society, there are those men who were picked out to do this. And this is where you come in as police officers. Today on Ministry of the Badge, we're going to take that example that you have, and we're going to show you in the Bible. We're going to continue on with the theme here since it is Easter month. And these Ministry of the Badge will come out every Friday, so I hope you stay tuned every Friday. I'm going to do everything I can to drop new episodes to you, to encourage you, to let you know that you are different and you are special, and you are special to the Lord. And I'm not going to talk to you like you're some romper room kid or, whatever the case may be. I know you're cops, you're, men of the law, men of all these things, but you are different, and you know this. And you've been called to a job unlike any other. And I know I keep saying that, but I want you to know that. Those of you who are fresh on the job, you got a long ways to go. Stick with it. Things may seem like they're getting out of hand. They'll get better. There's pendulum swings. But just understand that your community does appreciate you, and you don't always hear about that. When you see people that are in trouble, or when you just go out of your way to talk to that kid on the sidewalk, and you step out of your patrol car and you get to know some of the folks that you see in the streets every day, even the ones that are yelling at you on the porch over there for, disrupting whatever is going on that they have. Even they, when it comes down time, will appreciate the job that you do. And we'll talk about that, how to be a reformer, a transformer in your community, as it is your ministry. And I want you to view it that way, as your ministry. And you may say, well, I'm not a church going guy. I don't even begin to understand that. And I'm sure you don't. And I hope by tuning in to Ministry of the Badge, you'll start to get a better idea of how it really is your place in the world, to not just do a job, collect a paycheck, and go home, because it's not a job that you can do that. So many times you will see things and hear things that most people will never, ever come across. But there you are. You're still there. And you're still plugging away. And those people appreciate you for what you do. And there's a prime example of that in the Bible. So let's get right into it. It comes from Luke chapter 7. And as you can see, it comes from I call it Lessons from the Centurion. And back in those days, in the biblical times, the Roman soldiers patrolled the streets. I mean, anyone knows, where we get our badges and everything that has to do with policing a lot of times comes from those days of the Roman soldiers. patrolling the streets of Jerusalem. And in this particular case, in Luke chapter 7, I realize I don't have the reference up there, and I apologize. But in Luke chapter 7, there is a soldier, a centurion, who cares a lot about his community. How do we know that? Because as we get into the story and as we see the centurion, we will see that he, in fact, is loved by the people that he serves. And can you imagine how hard of a job it had to be a Roman centurion in those days when just like now, where you're looked at, and in this case they were an occupied force, but there was uprisings and protests and nasty things being said about you. And the religious aspect of you wanted nothing to do with you. Can you imagine having the religious aspect wanting nothing to do with you? The churches and ignoring you? Unlike today, where churches try to go out of their way. And if you have a church, you should go out of your way to help your local police departments. And I'm not just talking in a chaplaincy. But can you imagine being the cop in a town where no one likes you? I talked to a cop who worked in a foreign country, and I won't mention the country because I don't want to down the country. If you're a cop in those countries and you happen to see my show, you'll know what I'm talking about. But he came here and he said, where I come from, you don't tell people you're a police officer. You never say anything about being a police officer. As a matter of fact, what you do is you avoid the topic altogether. When you go into a store, they make fun of you, they oink at you, and they. I couldn't imagine working under pressure like that. And he said, oftentimes you'll get followed home. There's knifings all the time that happen. And you got to ask yourself, what is going on? Why in the world would you want to do this to police officers? In Jerusalem in those days, it may not quite have been that bad, but I'd be willing to bet that most of those cops that patrolled those streets were treated similar to that. And the very fact that this particular Roman soldier, this centurion, was treated in a different way tells me a lot about this man. And again, the Bible goes into this story in a couple different chapters, in a couple different books, or not chapters, but books. And it's more interesting to see what Jesus says about him. Now, today on Ministry of the Badger, we're going to do 2 out of the 4 points that I have regarding this particular Roman soldier. And this may be a little bit shorter of a show than the last ones were, and they will vary in lengths. But nonetheless, we want to stop and take a look at this because, again, the whole purpose of this program is to show you who you are according to the Bible. So it's imperative that we do take a look at the Bible to see exactly what it says. So here we go. Now, a centurion had a servant who was sick and at the point of death, who was highly valued by him. When the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly. Now imagine, this Roman soldier is obviously well liked by this community. And he decides that He knows. Again, Jesus has a reputation. If you remember in our first episode with Pontius Pilate, this is before that. But Jesus had such a reputation even amongst the Roman soldiers. When I did studies in the Bible, when I put together the presentation called Ministry of the Badge and now this podcast, I was amazed when I was reading this story and just listening to the words of Jesus and watching how the people reacted to this particular centurion and other centurions later on. And what amazed me about it is how much God paid attention. I'm telling you, it's what led me to this point to bring all of this to you. So here's this centurion in a neighborhood that he's probably patrolled however long he's been there. And I would have had guessed as we go through this interaction, this man has probably been there for quite some time. And he goes to the elders of the Jews. Now, that shows you the level of respect. Remember, those Jews usually didn't associate with anybody who wasn't Jewish. The Bible doesn't say if this particular centurion was or was not Jewish. It doesn't say that. He's a Roman centurion. So the Jews come to him, or he comes to them, and he says, hey, you have this person, Jesus. You guys must know him. And he sends them to Jesus. And they come to Jesus pleading with Jesus. And listen what they say. He's worthy, the centurion, to have you do this for him. For he loves our nation. And he is the one who built us our synagogues. Did you hear what they said? Number one, the centurion sends these guys, these elders, to Jesus. And he knows the reputation that Jesus has. Jesus has been healing people and performing miracles throughout Judea. And so this man, now pay attention, he doesn't go to him himself. Oftentimes it's portrayed as if though he comes to Jesus himself. In another book of the Bible, it says that, but really what's going on is he sends others to talk to Jesus. And again, what you must find amazing about that is there's a relationship there. This officer has built a relationship with these people in an occupied territory that he patrols. That speaks to the heart of the man. And it speaks to the fact that when it comes to policing and the community, it serves you well to not just be above them, because this soldier could have easily just had been above them. But instead, he was one of them. How do we know this? Because they're pleading with Jesus that this man should get healed. This man's servant should be healed. Why? Because, Master, he built us the synagogue. Something that's so near and dear to us. This man, this Roman soldier, went out of his way for our community and built us something that's so near and dear to us that could you just do something near and dear for him? That in and of itself is amazing. Oftentimes you see while you're on patrol, or you watch as a they call them good Samaritans. If an officer gets in a fight and you watch somebody come and they help this officer fight, I mean, you see plenty of officers who get beat up by crowds of people and all these things, and it makes the news. But what you often don't see are the times when just regular citizens will come along and help, especially an officer that they know. There's a lot of beloved officers on departments that if they were in trouble, the whole community would turn out for them. And I'm not just talking about the community service guys or the deputy friendlies or officer friendlies or whatever you may have in your town. I'm talking about just patrolmen like this Centurion. And again, the Bible doesn't give a lot of detail on the person of the Centurion, but it does in this dialogue that these Jews are having with Jesus, these elders are having with Jesus. It does speak to the relationship that this officer has built with them, because you can hear it in what they say. He is worthy to have you do this for him. I'll ask any one of you, are you worthy? I'm not asking you if you feel worthy. There's a difference. I'm asking you, have you made yourself worthy? The badge gives you authority. Yes, it does. And I fully believe that you were placed there. Yes, I do. I don't think we can argue that point. But I would firmly say that having a reputation that others would say about you that you're worthy is completely on you. How do you wield that authority? How do you portray yourself to people? I used to say all the time, it's very easy to get people to fight. It really is. When you're a cop, it doesn't take much. Any of you veteran guys out there know that. If you rookies, you'll figure that out right quick. But it takes a different kind of person to end a fight long before it even starts. What kind of person does it take that those people on the streets would go to somebody of importance and say about you, hey, can you do that for this guy? Because he's worthy. He's worthy. Worthiness, I think, comes in the form for this particular centurion. First and foremost, by the heart he has for his own servant. This centurion is having someone go get help for this other guy. Like those officers walking around, what they would then do is they'd be able to help the people in those neighborhoods as they were walking around there. But if necessary, get them help. That program that you see has continued on, and they have officers that have certain areas that's what they're there for. I mean, yeah, they'll write you tickets and they'll do other things, but their main job on those walking beats is to be there and get things for you. It could be, how do you get a permit? How do you, animal, not cruelty, or, animal shelter care, whatever the case may be. Just these mundane, everyday things. I know an officer that bought a whole room full of furniture for a family. I know officers that have brought clothes to kids, getting to know their community. I mean, yeah, you have Shop with the Cop programs and you have all these different programs that go, oh, man, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the officers that walk around every day. Are they saying that about you? Let me get more to the point. Do you want them to say that about you? And I understand that not everyone who wears the badge, if you're an FBI guy, a Secret Service guy, and I can't say that may be the case either, because you may be an FBI guy that works near a police department. You may be an FBI guy that, your job is to go to these banks and do all these things. You have relationships with people other than the ones you work with. I listen to the stories from Border Patrol and how they come across, some of these children and do all these things. These men aren't just there to, arrest everybody coming across to do whatever. They're going to try to get these people help. It's hard to build a community with people who you're going to send back to a foreign country. I get all of that. But are you worthy? Let that sink in. I'm going to tell you this. You were picked to do the job. Before time was made, it was laid on your heart to do that job. According to God, you are well worthy. So let that worth not just stay inside you. Show it to those around you. And again, I'm not talking about some wimpy, and if you are one of these guys, don't get me wrong. Everybody needs a hug. Everybody, right? No, I'm not talking about that. Because when it's time to kick in a door, it's time to kick in a door. If this centurion had to go to one of these elders and have to come into his place and kick in their door, I'm sure that's what had to happen. And even then, he would be worthy. Why? Because he would be doing a job that he knew he had the authority to do. But this particular centurion even went out of his way, and it doesn't say how he did it. Did he arrange a crew? Was he part of the crew? Did he, lift a beam? I mean, it doesn't say. But he was the one who built us our synagogue. Huh. Does that sound familiar to you? You see, that goes to show you that cops aren't those who wear the badge aren't these robotic figures that just walk around and arrest people all day, every day, right? No, it doesn't work that way. These men have hobbies. I know some cops that are really, really good builders. Man, they'll throw a room up in your basement just like that, and it'll be perfect. Some of the best carpenters around. I know cops that lay concrete. Very good at it. It's kind of nice to have a brother that knows concrete, right? Not a real brother, but, brother in blue. But do you use those skills to help out those people on the street? Have you ever thought about that? And maybe I'm speaking to you. Maybe I'm speaking to you because you felt for a long time that, kind of getting burnt out. And you're just tired of all the negativity. You ever thought about being worthy? Using those other skills that you've acquired? See, because the ability to do the job has been laid on your heart. Your skills and doing all these other things that you've done or like doing, those are things you developed. You became a person who wears the badge because you weren't going to be satisfied until you did just that. And again, there may be those of you who came to the job and thought you'd want to try it out, and you're hating life every second you can. Well, to you, I'd say, why aren't you going to do something else? Why burn yourself out? But those are different. I'm talking to you. The one who's trying to figure out, man, should I keep doing this? Been here 10, 15 years. It's just, set yourself aside and take a look at those people that you serve. You may work in some rough neighborhoods. I've done it. Okay? We'll go into conversations that I've had with people in some not so great neighborhoods. You heard that one cop say. Plain truth, right? I hesitated at first to play that, but that's how we talk. These are some of our bad neighborhoods. Maybe you're in those. Do you care if those people think you're worthy? You may say, I don't care. It's my job. Maybe you don't. Maybe you should go to another neighborhood. Doesn't mean you shouldn't still be a cop. Maybe you just need to take some time off, or maybe you just need to look at things just a little bit differently. When any of those people go to someone of importance, like Jesus, and say he's worthy, how many of those people do you think say prayers for you? We may not be able to walk up to Jesus and talk to him, but there are people in your neighborhoods that you serve that pray to him all the time. What are their prayers for you? I want you to think about that. Let's continue on. He's worthy to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he is the one who built our synagogues. And Jesus went with them. Jesus went with them. That in and of itself is, wow. So there's 4 lessons. The very first thing that this person did was he prioritized the people in his life, the ones that he served. He prioritized them above himself. It doesn't mean that he didn't do his job. It means that he realized he got to a point where he had to go beyond himself. And when he got to a point where he knew he couldn't do anything, when his servant was sick, he was counting on the fact that he was going to go to those elders And they would then go to Jesus. How many of you officers and those who wear the badge can look the people that you serve in the eye and say, would you pray for me? We'll get into the power of prayer on another episode of Ministry of the Badge. But I can tell you this. If you haven't said that to anyone that you serve, ask. You'll be surprised. If you say to a person, and again, I'm not saying let all your emotions out and, shed a tear all the time. I'm not saying that. There is a time and a place for that. I've held back many a tears. God has given us an ability as police officers compartmentalize, unlike most people. Those of us who wear the badge and see the horrific things, we have to be able to compartmentalize all the horrors that we see in order to keep doing the jobs that we do. So I'm not talking about that. Go on any call with a child, raid any home and take children, away from their parents that the kids don't understand. That's mom and dad. And you have to bring comfort to this child. It's a necessary thing. Yeah, absolutely. So we have to be able to compartmentalize that. But there are brief moments where we get to the point beyond ourselves that there's somebody that you serve that has a heart for you. And maybe you don't realize it because you just haven't taken the time. And if you'd say to them, hey, could you just pray for me? That's it. You have to get detailed. I'm not asking you to get involved in these people's lives all the time. When I say these people, they're not necessarily the people that you serve. I'm simply saying, can you ask? And if you can't, ask yourself why. Ask yourself why. And again, in no way, shape, or form am I telling all you all to be hug a cop. Okay? I'm not saying that at all. I was not hug a cop. That's for doggone sure. But I am saying go out there. Start understanding who you are. Maybe it's the first time you've ever heard anything like this. Understand that you've been given authority. We saw that last time on Ministry of the Badge. Unlike anyone else has. Maybe you're a DA who thinks charging people less because you feel bad for them or so on and so forth or whatever. But what about the victims of the crimes? Do you think caring so much about the criminal? Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of criminals that deserve to be treated maybe a little bit differently, but to not charge somebody because, he's not going to learn, or, it's insanity. It's a disservice to that person. But how many people can you go to? And then they'll go to God for you. That's what this centurion did. And it's because his priority for the people. Let's get to point number 2. Point number 4, and now point number 3. It's interesting when he comes to Jesus and he says, in Luke 7:8, we skipped over 6, or we skipped over 7. And he comes to Jesus and he said, I'm a man, for I too am a man set under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, go, and he goes. And to another, come, and he comes. And to my servant, do this, and he does it. But it's what he says at first. I'm a man. I too am a man under authority. This centurion fully realizes who he is. And a little sneak preview, who Jesus is. Because the words I too, T-O-O, I also am a man under authority. Do you think this is a guy who paid attention? I do. Do you think this is a guy that he knows exactly who this person is? Yeah, I do. Jesus, throughout his ministry, constantly said that he was never there to do his own will, that he was there to do the will of his Father, the greater authority. This man knows there is a greater authority. I too am a man under authority. And I don't think this is in any way equating himself to Jesus, but I am sure, listening to the conversation, as sure as I am in my spirit, that this man, this cop, has probably understood this for a long time. And maybe early on when he was in Rome training, or wherever his background may be. Again, the Bible doesn't give any indication. The fact that he's a centurion, he's a higher level guy. So maybe he's a let's give him a number. Let's give him between a 5 and 10 year guy. Probably more like a 10-year guy, right? In cop lingo. So this dude's been around a while. He's understood now where he's at. So he gets his responsibility. He knows full well. Notice he says, first, he's a man under authority. And then he says, I can tell them to do this, and I got servants to do that. And he says, well, I ain't got no servants. Well, if you go on a scene and you point at somebody, you'd say, hey, you go over there and do this for me. I need you to when the ambulance comes, go over here. I mean, I've used citizens before in hey, I need you to do me a favor and go over there and make sure, just let me know if. Not to mention other cops. Hey, you go block the road. We all know taking control of a scene. So he basically describes that, right? He describes all of what he can do, but he first says he's a man under authority. He's a man worthy. He's a man worthy by those he serves, by those he is over, that he's in charge of. He helped build a synagogue. He took the time to get to know the community. And when he found out that he had reached a point he couldn't do it anymore, there was nothing he could do in this particular case for his servant. He sent them to Jesus. Or in your case, he asked them to pray. Because there's somebody on your patrol. There's somebody who's it's been laid on their heart. You. That person you came across in the airport, working TSA. That person that, while you were on that raid, that ICE raid, was standing watching the whole time in prayer for you. Maybe you caught their eye. Maybe they saw you shaking your head when you saw that body lying in the street. Maybe they caught you inhaling deeply as you laid that child on the stretcher. Maybe they heard you talking to that woman as she was dying. And all they want is to bring you to God. Because in the act that you did, they found you to be worthy. It's an amazing thing, an amazing circumstance when you come to a point of understanding as a police officer that the community does care a lot about you. It's an awesome thing to get little gift cards or gloves or some snacks or something that they've given you that they take the time to do. But man, it's a whole nother thing. A whole other thing. When somebody says, "Hey, officer, can I pray for you?" "Hey, officer, is there anything that you need?" I've seen it. I've seen it. And I believe so much that most in law enforcement, 99% of them, 99% of you who wear the badge, who may not realize yet that you have a ministry, not just a job, not just a career with a so-so pension. Some of you may not even have that. Definitely underpaid. You don't do it because you're trying to get rich. You're doing it because you're called to. I fully believe that you're worthy. Again, I serve as a chaplain. Talked to a few men. Prayed with a lot of them. A lot of them. And I'll pray for all of you, and I don't know any of you by name. Some of you may know me. Especially those that I know. But I do it because I understand. But there are people out there who you serve who want to pray for you. They just need you to ask. And again, I'm not asking you to be vulnerable. And I'm not talking about necessarily the people that you go to church with. Maybe you don't go to church. I'm talking simply about those people that you serve. And again, the Bible is not clear. And I'm not trying to read too much into it. But listening to the words of these people, I didn't break down the Greek or anything like that they were speaking. We'll take it at face value for what it is. But how many are saying to you? How many are looking at you saying, man, God, just be with that officer. Just be with that officer that comes into this gas station every day. Just be with that officer that I see drive by my house every morning. He doesn't always wave, but I guess he's got a lot on his mind. Be with that officer as I see him leave every morning. As I see him come home early in the morning. I know he's got a family. I know she has a family inside. I know they both have a family. They're officers, God. They're good people. They're worthy. That guy coaches my son's baseball team. He's worthy. That guy helped my cousin. He didn't even know it was him. He's worthy. That officer doesn't even know that he helped me one day. He's worthy. Is that you? Do you want it to be? I could tell you this, beyond a shadow of a doubt, there is only one way to be the best minister of the badge that you can be. The best warrior of the badge that you could be. There is only one way. And that is to follow and be a servant of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, Jesus Christ. Until next time, thank you for joining and listening to, and please subscribe to Ministry of the Badge.
For he is God's minister, an avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. You've been listening to Ministry of the Badge.